drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Good evening and welcome to another Doctor on Call program. It is Tuesday, and of course, at this time, this is where we shift the discussion in the direction that can help enhance our wellness. Very, very important indeed. You know, many times we hear people say, you know, hey, well, you look well. Right, and that's on the outside, but sometimes we really don't know what's happening in there. And it is so important that we do the necessary checks, the necessary screening, visit our doctors, do all that is necessary to ensure that what we see on the outside is a reflection of what's inside. All right, we don't want to take any chances. Our health is our wealth. Yeah, and of course, you know, starting a new year, and I think we mentioned it last week. It's a good time to start making the adjustments that we require, making the changes, setting the goals to ensure that we live a healthier life. Yeah. And of course, that would definitely add some years to us. And I know we all want to live and enjoy life as long as we can. But to do that, we must also ensure that we do what is necessary, right? And what is necessary does not include doing anything. You know, eating anything or drinking anything or just, you know, living carelessly. No. That won't work. We have to pay attention to what we do, where we go, what we eat, what we drink. In fact, anything we put into our system, we need to be mindful that it can do us good and not bad. This evening, we are going to be discussing the health of school-age children. In other words, disease prevention, preventing disease, in our school-age children, our young ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that kind of thing. The young ones, very, very important, because if there's a good foundation, if we do what is right at that age, listen, we are basically sowing seeds that can grow healthy children, and that is very important. So Dr. Nixon is with us as always, and joining us this evening, no stranger to the program, Mr. Akim Williams. He is a member of our youth parliament. I am not sure what portfolio he has or he's overlooking, but I'm sure he'll take a minute to tell us that, so we're happy to have him. He's been here before, and it is a real pleasure. So it's a good time to say welcome. Dr. Nixon, welcome. Akim, welcome. Happy New Year. It's good to have you on the program with us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Good night, everybody.
Yes, indeed.
Happy New Year.
Yes. Doc, we started our conversation last week, and I think the week before, talking about the importance of screening and doing our tests and everything. And last week, we even looked at, some of the tests and what they indicate and how we can prepare ourselves. And this evening, we're taking the discussion to our school-age children, how we can prevent disease at that age. And I think it's a very critical time because, sometimes what we see is not good.
Right.
Yeah.
What we want doesn't really exist, yeah.
Exactly. So Doc, I would let you take it right away because it's a very, very important discussion. So let's go with it.
Well, I think we should let Akim introduce himself first.
Yeah, Doc, I think you should do that. Give Akim the opportunity to.
Akim is one of our very avid young nutritionists. He works at Food and Nutrition Council. Very, very interested in the lifestyle, especially of young people. He is a member of the Youth Parliament, and I know he has a special love for our policy on preventing childhood obesity. So, Akim, I know you're here, and I really welcome you. And tonight, I think you have a special task because you're going to give us some of the guidelines as to why we should be doing some things. But before we go, I want us to look at last week we talked about mostly pregnant mothers and the first year of childhood, right? And how that was so calculated. The first year of childhood, they had so many well child visits and stuff, and that for pregnancy you had to be prepared long before you're pregnant, and how important it was for us to go to all the antenatal clinics and be seen by somebody professional, and don't just turn up to have a baby when you get into labor. But the screening for sickle cell and the screening for the other communicable diseases was very important. And we got into saying, let's make a good person, a healthy person. And you can make a healthy person, one, by being prepared, giving them a cocoon in which to develop, right? By ensuring that all the care that is possible, that we know as far as science can help, is available to them. By ensuring that the mother's aware and supported, that she lives in a supportive environment. By ensuring that all our children are born in the proper space. That is a scientifically planned space, a hospital or a birthing center, where you have people who know about safe delivery are present to develop the child. And we went into the first year. But I want to state, because, and we come back to it as to why we're actually going into the time when our children are already in school. Let's say 5, 6, 18, okay? That's school ages for us. Some of the kids already coming to college by the time they're 16, but you can have up to 18 years in high school. No. We know that once you start to go to primary school, mommy drop you off and she pick you up in the evening. You might go home with your friend and your cousin and them, but generally there's a lot more independence that is allowed to school-age children. And the bottom line is that school-age children do have their own challenges in relation to their own health. They may have diseases like asthma and epilepsy and sickle cell and other forms of anemia. But also school-age children tend to be crazy. They jump up and down, they hurt themselves. So I have to make sure that they're guided properly, especially our boys. They're guided properly, not to harm themselves. Although we don't do it in Grenada, it is highly advisable, because it happens everywhere else, that children should be taken to the doctor once a year. We want to make sure that our children are not obese. We want to make sure that they're growing like their friends. We want to make sure that they don't have visual problems. We want to make sure that they don't have other nutritional problems like malnutrition and overweight. And if we continue to follow them, but also there is there are vaccines that are to be had, and we want to make sure that our children receive whatever course of vaccines they have to get between that ages. And it's often boosters, but this is important. The world has become a very short place, a very small place. You're in New Zealand today, and in the morning you're up in the North Pole. That's how the world is. And by the afternoon next day in another place, and then you go back to, it's really, really small. So we want to make sure that our children are well. Right? The annual checks is very important. A lot of parents don't do it. We take our children to the doctor only when they're sick. They have a cold, or we're afraid they're catching COVID or something else, or they have appendicitis. And a lot of these things happen. Children develop cancers. Not very prevalent in our environment, thank God, but that can happen. Children fall and break their arms. They like I said, asthma, seizures, those are some of the things we see in school-age children. The other thing is that they kind of decide what they're going to eat. If you give them lunch money, I can guarantee most of the children will not buy proper food. They will eat whatever is most attractive to them, especially if you have a very stringent pattern of eating at home. So those are one of the things we want to talk about a little later, but that's one of the things that parents should be keeping tabs on. What is my children eating? In an environment where we're likely to have school lunches, not very long from now, where we're likely to have balanced lunches for our children, I want to implore to parents that they ensure that their children eat what is prepared at school, because guess what? If you don't eat what is prepared at school, you're going to be eating bad food, because what is sold otherwise is not nutritionally competent for the children. As a matter of fact, most of the things our kids buy are called ultra-processed products. They're not even called foods, okay? Because they have no good nutritional component. You might get some carbohydrates and a little bit of salt and a little bit of fat. But when it comes to having balanced nutrition, proteins, and having all the micronutrients, that's not possible. So we want to make sure. Boys tend to get severe injury. Boys will drown. Boys will get into accident and damage themselves. So those are the things parents have to make sure that they guide their children. They get electrocuted. Boys die by accidental death, right? In that age. They learn to drive. They smoke weed. They do, they experiment a little more than the girls, okay? We also have to make sure that our children in that age are not being abused physically, emotionally, especially sexually. Okay, we have to make sure children are live in safe environments where people don't smoke in the house, where they don't have to be afraid of their uncle, their granny, their father, their stepfather, whoever it is, especially our girls and also our boys, right? Especially when it comes to that kind of trauma, carries our children through life. Half of the times we're really afraid to talk about it. And we end up being unhappy adults, because what we want is that our children have a happy childhood so that can be translated into a happy adulthood. Okay, we want our children to be nutritionally sound so that they can learn and they can participate in all the activities at school. We talked about physical activity, and one of the things is that I know the ministry is looking to put back physical education as a time of day. Our children should be running up and down at least half hour every day. Every day. Okay? A lot of us don't do that. We drop them to school, and like I said, if we could drop them inside the desk, we'll do that. We don't want our children to walk up the hill. We don't, we give our girls permission to not play games because they have period every week. Well, so they make our children think. When in truth and in fact, they should be indulging in physical exercise. So those are some of the overall things I want to see. We've been talking about adolescent health recently, and when facilities are provided for adolescent health, our adolescents will have a space where they can be focused on, where they can concentrate and they can get care according to their own needs. Adolescents have a different life. And as time goes by, there's more stress for them out there, right? One of the things that parents need to look out for is vaping among their children. And maybe we can talk a little bit on that. We should wait until World Tobacco Day, which I think comes up very soon. Just using these little vapes with all this hot air that just really make your lung turn into popcorn. There's no more picturesque way to describe it. Damage your children's lung from very early. What do we do when we have lung failure from that early? Lung damage that is irreversible. Your lung does not regenerate itself, unlike your liver might do, but your lung doesn't generate itself. So, those are the things you have to look out for. Your children driving fast, using drugs, being out there, being sexually active, drinking too much rum at carnival, which they should not be drinking at all. And above all, us as adults procuring alcohol for our children. I was talking to someone yesterday who was very concerned about seeing a parent buying a shandy each for the 6 and 8 year old. Go figure. What is the alcohol content? 4%? Right? Even I will get drunk on a shandy, right? What we do is creating habits in children, because alcohol is very addictive, creating habits and addiction that they really probably don't want to have. And we don't know exactly just how genetically lined up they are for alcohol as a problem, and maybe we're starting something that they don't want. But, because I'm coming to you now, Akin, hear me now. I was at a sports event on the weekend, and I was flabbergasted. And we've been talking about this, and I've said it before, but for some reason, this weekend was very emotionally painful for me, because while we try to, we have developed policy, while we try to implement, like the Trinidadians, like the Trinidadians have done, we have not been that forthright. Implement, school nutrition policy, no sugar sweetened beverages in school. I mean, I went to sports. When you go to a sports activity, you spend, let's say, 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and I'm really cutting it short, right? If your mother give you $50, you spend $2.50 or $5 a bus. I'm just saying. The rest of it you buy sweet drink and chicken and chips. There's a whole season of our children consuming an excess of sugar-sweetened beverages, fried foods, buying junk, look at packaged chocolates and the corn curls looking stuff and all the things in packets, which are convenience foods. But our children are going to be gorging on that. And yeah, you can make a choice to make it, but do they have the capacity to make choices? Are parents instructing our children as to what they should be consuming? Are we ensuring that our children have the right thing to eat? Are we ensuring that when they go to these events that there is food for them? A parent was telling me this afternoon that her children, after a while, decided they can't eat this foolishness, this thing that they sell tastes bad and makes them feel sick. So she had to pack sandwiches for them when they went to sporting events. And these children are athletes. So we've been talking about water, and water, I still think, is a preferred beverage. We've been talking about that. And so I want you to talk to us about why we need to drink water. What about it? What are the advantages to drinking water for us? And more so for our children. Why is it important that water be the beverage that they hang out with?
I think so. Good night again. And I mean, to answer that, I heard a quote about water that says the reality of the fact is that we live in water. We live in water. When you think of it, every single cell, every process in the body lives and happens because of the presence of water. And so we not only that, we live in a hot environment. So when we think of the different biochemical functions, we want to talk about things like regulation of body temperature. You want to talk about water provides a facility that chauffeurs or carry all of the nutrients. So from consumption, when we consume food, water provides a medium that allows those nutrients to pass through the digestive system to go into the bloodstream, making up a greater percentage of our blood. It also allows the medium for us to be able to transport those nutrients to where they need to go, whether it's to the liver, whether it's to the brain, whether it's to whatever vital organs that require those nutrients for the daily functioning. That's one of the core things. The reality is we live in a hot environment, and because of where we are located, there is a great up chance sometimes for us to lose a lot of water. And I think sometimes that is the easy in which we must have the conversation. So when this happens to us, we realize then there are a lot of other functions, and it is when those functions start functioning, I guess, not as optimal as we expect. So we're talking about brain function, we're talking about waste reduction or waste removal, from the body. Think about sometimes you go to the bathroom and the urine is very, very concentrated. We know when that happens, sometimes we see the formation of stones in the kidneys, and then that puts pressure on the body. We see it in the regulation of mood. Strange enough, while at school we were doing we talking about school-age children. While at school we were talking about I did a research that was looking at the role of water consumption and educational outcome in children, and the reality is at least as low as 5% depletion in your water reserves has significant cognitive effects. And
explain that for me. What does that mean?
So when I say cognitive effects, it means in your ability to think, to process information, and your ability to translate the information into application. So everything that requires your brain for functioning, whether it's all of those processes, internalizing it. I tell parents all the time, your child goes to school and and I mean, if they're in preschool, we're talking about they may learn what is a triangle, what is a circle, the ability to come and apply that information to you in plain like, oh mommy, this is the circle, and to show the application in real life. All of these require cognitive processes. So
that it means understanding what teachers say, being able to use it and share it.
100%.
Talk about it.
Correct. Okay. So you see, it underscores even more so why it is important, especially for school-age children, because these are learned behaviors. And I think when we realize that all of these snacking behaviors, they are learned behaviors, and they form habits that are difficult to change, it is only then we realize how far-reaching and long-lasting these habits follow us for a lifetime. So all of these are some of the really important of water. Again, to add, maybe talk about joint health and being able to lubricate those joints in the body. Talk about we spoke about waste removal, but simple, not allowing the body to become a place where everything is so toxic that functions are slowed, and we have the progression and development of other types of illnesses and diseases even as you go along in life. I mean, there is so many functions that are so many roles rather that water plays in the body, and so it is important for us to ensure that we're having adequate amounts. And think about it, when you're outside in a sporting environment, we're not inside in the air condition. We're outside in the air, we're jumping, we're celebrating, we're sweating, and we're losing a lot of water. And what we're taking in, oftentimes we're getting fluid, but it's coming with high sodium, it's coming with high sugar, which is also now increasing the toxic load and the dehydration, because now we're concentrating the fluids in the body. Recipe for disaster is what I like to call that.
Right. So I want to jump in here, Doc, because we're talking school-age children and how we can actually prevent diseases. So we're talking primary here, and a number of things. Listening to both you and Akeem, a number of things came to mind. All right. Thinking about the school, and I recall in my days in primary school, there was a subject we did called health science. So we didn't get to biology and all these fancy things yet. We had health science. And a couple of things I remember. There are times when you went to school, the teacher would have you put your hands on the desk and examine your fingernails and a couple other little things. My thing here is, presently, based on what we are seeing and the consumption of so much sugar in beverages, do you think we have a proper health, or we have proper health education programs in our schools? Because if we implement those programs, right now, the schools can empower children with the knowledge, because it becomes part of the curriculum. It's part of their daily school life. So they would learn about nutrition, the importance of physical activity, mental health, which I want us to speak to in a little bit. But let's just talk about that, the importance of a proper health education program or health education programs in our primary schools.
So as far as I know, we had a thing called health and family life education. A lot of it, my impression, I don't have school-age children. I haven't had a school-age child for a very long time, and I haven't had a school-age child here, okay? But the impression I get is that a lot of it also included sexual health, okay? And that created some, people don't want you to talk sex to their children, even gender, okay? But I don't know that the HFLE program is very vibrant in our schools. I don't get that kind of feeling. Maybe Akeem, who visits the school, can bring us up. And I think there's a good place for that, because there are other things that have been introduced into the schools, right, that should be able to enhance children's well-being, like sports, like physical activity, right? So maybe what we need to do is bring back HFLE, right? And so we can, or no, not bring it back. Strengthen that program. Look at it again, because things change, okay? You have other way of teaching, you have other way of getting information, you have other way of having children interact with whatever education. Everybody's doing AI and everybody's doing internet and whatever it is, right? The bottom line is that I think that program has been there and may have been left to fizzle a little. If there's anybody listening who have any other information from the Ministry of Health, it would be great to hear what you say about this, because this is a very important point. You cannot tell your child anything which opposes what teachers say. Am I right? What teachers say is gospel, right? And we believe anything teacher says, nothing else. So this is a good time to bring it back on. You know, the other thing is that we had a survey done on the access to water, because you can't tell children drink water and you don't provide it. Because I can tell you, a lot of children tell you they would rather have water to drink than sodas, because the sodas make them feel tired, it makes them thirsty, they don't feel satisfied, okay? But we did a survey, and we discovered that a lot of the schools, first of all, very few, maybe, I don't know what, but very few of the schools had, water coolers. If you have 500 children in a school, having water coolers can be a little tedious on your light bill, okay? But even to have proper standpipes, where the pipe is, can all the children reach? If you have a 6-year-old, can he reach to where the pipe is? I remember us having to lift the little ones then when we were going to primary school so they can reach the pipe to drink water. You remember that? Is it cleaned every day, or does it smell frozen? Is it too close to the toilet, right? If you have a toilet facility where you have 300 children using, you can't be drinking water there, right? People can't come and wash their hand when they come from the bathroom there. They shouldn't be washing their face. So that personal hygiene and the water, the potable water for drinking, right? So there were not proper facilities for our children to access water at school, and many, maybe a larger percentage than not, out of all the schools that were done. I'm sorry I don't have all of that data, but I know that our services were inadequate. Okay?
But Doc, let me just, I want to jump in. And while I agree with what you're saying, the facilities for children to get the water and all of that, and I want to go back to the question that you asked Akeem earlier. Why is it important? Now, you made the point that if we give our school children money, they would buy what excites them, what looks interesting to them. So I'm wondering, are they aware, or do they understand the importance of drinking water? And this is why I asked the question about, an adequate health program, so that they can actually understand what is involved. So that...
I think we've come full circle, because I don't know that our children are properly educated. I don't know if our parents are properly educated in relation to that, because they're the ones who also have to reinforce any kind of education you give them in school, right? Yes, there are parents who give their children a bottle of water to take to school, right? You probably need twice that amount. Can you carry it? No, little children can't carry much water. And that is why I speak to the fact that there must be available water in our schools. If our children, you're going to ask our children not to drink sugar-sweetened beverages, are we providing pure fruit drinks? Are we providing things like coconut water? Are we providing natural drinks? Are we providing even fruits that a kid can have in school? Maybe we not, okay? But like I said, if you're going to tell the children drink water, make sure there's water, even if it's bottled water and they have to pay for it. What I'm saying, we have to ensure that the water is available to our children. Because what I saw in the stadium on Saturday really bothered me intensely. Do you see a water fountain in the stadium? No.
Or I haven't. I mean, I understand. I'm just wondering here, and this is on my mind. Yeah, I mean, telling them to drink water is one thing, but do they understand why it is important to drink water? Telling them to drink water is one thing, fine. Yeah, well, teachers say drink water, and we established earlier that what teachers say is gospel, but do they understand why they need to?
But I think this is where primary school. All I'm saying is that we need to reinstate a full program, not only for exercise and say drink water, but we have to teach children how to improve their lifestyle. And that has to come from within the Ministry of Health and Education working together to ensure that our children stay well. Go, Akeem.
So I would want to agree with the 2 points. Yeah, I think because I'm recently at a school, and one of the things I've been really thinking about for the last few years is why is it our schools don't have those water coolers? I think sometimes I remember going to school sometimes, and when you have to go to the standpipes and have to drink that water from the tap, sometimes the sun is really, really hot. That in itself is not as encouraging to participate in pipe is to stand up and get water. But I also think, and I would want to agree with your point, too, that I often wonder whether or not people are aware of actually the specific roles and how important water actually functions in the body. I think generally the population has a general understanding that, water is good for hydration and to make sure that, those basic things. But I think at a critical level, specifically as to how it's affecting them. And in recent times, we've been doing some work with the schools, and I must commend the persons at the Ministry of Education, the administrative team. They have invited us to speak to the teachers, especially, I didn't hear you talk about mental health, but when we talk about education and we talk about students, I think 2 things that we could never talk about education and students and not talk about concentration and memory. We just talk about those cognitive processes just now that must happen. You see,
and nutrition,
and nutrition, yes. But in terms of supporting that their function in the classroom, and sometimes teachers don't realize. We hear a lot of the challenges that the principals are sometimes when you go to do the PTA meetings, because they invite me to come to the PTA meetings, and we hear the concerns. The children are not focusing in the classroom. The children are always otherwise engaged. They can't process. We hear the challenges. We hear that it appears that we have a lot of young persons who might be underdiagnosed with things like ADHD, and we don't understand that these sugar sweetened beverages, according to all of the literature that I've seen, is aggravating it. And if we go to a sporting activity, it is a field day, and so we only seem to be reinforcing. But while we ask persons to drink more, to reduce those beverages, it is also vitally important that we have adequate alternatives for them within the school.
We must have. I agree with you.
Even within these sporting activities is vitally important.
Right. So we need to take a short break quickly, and we will be right back. So stay with us, folks. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to discuss. We'll be back in just a moment.
On Playway, $20 backup on Pick 3, and cash for each, please.
Okay, are you adding multi-X to your bet?
Yes, multi-X, all of them.
Smart. Best value bet. Backup and multi-X. You cannot go wrong.
Don't matter the bets, multi-X all of the daily games.
With multi-X added, your winnings can be multiplied 3 times, 5 times, even 7 times. So make it a rule. Add multi-X to all your Playway, daily pick 3, and daily cash for bets every day and for every drop, and watch your money grow. Available at stores and online.
You heard it here. Multiply your winnings daily. Must be 18 or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
Hello and welcome to the live Super 6 draw presentation for this evening, Tuesday, the 27th of January, 2026. I am your hostess, Kijan Smith. Super 6 is a multi-jurisdictional game owned by Winlot Inc. and is played within the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Grenada, and St. Lucia. Tonight's jackpot is valued at $250,000. We'll now get ready to select your free ticket letter. Good luck. Your free ticket letter is K. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with tonight's winning numbers.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Now you love Super 6 even more. With more money,
the jackpot galore. Play more, win more, have more fun.
With more jackpot money,
Super 6 is my number one.
With the new and improved Super 6 game, the jackpot keep growing and growing
and growing.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
Great news about Super 6. You can play Super 6 combo bets to increase your chances at winning the Super 6 jackpot. Here's how. The combo 5 betting option costs $69. Players have a choice of any 5 numbers, and if you match 5 of the 6 numbers, you win the jackpot. Maybe you prefer combo 7, costing $21. With a choice of 7 numbers, and if you match any 6 numbers out of the 7 numbers, you win the jackpot. How about combo 8? This option costs $84. Players select 8 numbers, and if you match any 6 numbers out of the 8 numbers, you win the jackpot. All numbers chosen should be from a range of 1 to 28. Play combo bets. Remember, with Super 6, there are bigger jackpots and more chances to win.
Welcome back. Get ready for your Super 6 winning numbers. Good luck. The first number is 18. The second number is 17. The third number is 9. The fourth number is 6. The fifth number is 27. And the final number is 15. To recap, your Super 6 winning numbers are 18, 17, 9, 6, 27, 15. Your free ticket letter is K. Tonight's winning numbers were drawn under the supervision of an auditor from BSA Consulting. Please contact your relevant Central Lottery office for further information on the payment of prizes. Thank you all for playing, and remember, with Super 6, there are bigger jackpots and more chances to win. Our next Super 6 draw takes place on Friday, the 30th of January, 2026. Until then, have yourself a wonderful evening.
What if you had a choice? A choice of joining a line or a choice of making your purchases online? What would you choose? While you ponder on that, the National Lotteries Authority has provided another purchasing option. All their games are now available online. Yes, Grenadians, from wherever you are, purchase your favorite daily and jackpot type games using any electronic device. Register on the NLA's website at www.nla.gd. Top up your account and enjoy online lottery gaming at your convenience. We're taking shopping comfort up several notches, but the choice is yours. Join a line or buy online. NLA, make your dreams come true.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor and Call. In case you joined us late, Dr. Nixon is with us, and Mr. Akeem Williams is also with us this evening, and we are discussing prevention of diseases, or disease prevention in school-aged children. Prior to the break, we spoke a bit on the importance of water, why our children should be consuming lots of water instead of sweetened beverages, which is really not good. So, Akeem, I want to come to you. Let me just share this with you quickly, and then both yourself and Doc can talk a bit about it. So, it has to do with physical activity and nutrition. So, encouraging regular physical activity and providing healthy meal options in schools can combat childhood obesity and related health issues. Schools can implement policies that promote physical education and healthy eating habits. And we know, I think we do have a school feeding program. How vibrant it is, I'm not sure. But yes, so Doc, Akeem, let's talk a bit about that.
So I'm going to let Akeem go with the nutrition. I'll complement.
Mm-hmm.
If I jump on, when we think of a school feeding program over the years, I think one of the things that we would realize is if you go to almost any country across the world that has a functioning school system, a school feeding program would be something that is common to those schools. A school feeding program in many countries were developed out of a need to fix the food security issue, and that created an environment for students to be able to have adequate nutrition while they're in school. Now, truthfully, school feeding programs are designed to provide 1/3 of the dietary reference intakes for children within their different age groups. So let's think about it. I like to tell
Explain that. What that means?
So I like to say to persons, what it simply means that for your particular age range and your biological makeup, male or female, right, there is a prescriptive amount, meaning a certain amount of vitamins, minerals that your body needs to function optimally. If you go below that, this is where we see things like undernutrition and things like deficiencies, right? And if you go over that in many categories, we see overnutrition is where we see the obesity comes in because of excess calories, excess sugar coming in. So what we do is that we divide it down for the day, and we say the assumption is children are spending at least 8 hours within the school environment, so that 1/3 of that is what the meal should be providing, right? So that it ensures that then we're not just feeding, but we're actually providing vitamins and minerals. And I think that's where, when it comes to nutrition, I like to tell persons all the time, because now if we look in nutrition and look in the malnutrition space, there is a word that is being talked about a lot. It's called the hidden hunger. And the hidden hunger says that we are eating, our bellies are filling, we're not necessarily hungry or starving, but when it comes to the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and those things, we are not getting enough. School feeding program and school policies allow us to fill that gap and allow us to give students and children a chance and give them all of the tools necessary for them to be successful in their educational journey. And that's from preschool going all the way up to secondary school until they get to adulthood. So that is one of the core foundations of that program.
Right. I want to put this out here, and I'm basically asking because I don't have the evidence, so I'm asking the school feeding program. I wonder about it sometimes. Is it a case where the meals in school are provided so that children, whose parents are probably not able to provide them with, adequate nutrition, or is it a case where children are just given a meal in school? In other words, is the emphasis on providing a healthy, nutritious meal for children so that it can be a part of the disease prevention thing?
So that is in the conversation, and at the council we often go to the schools and monitor. We give support to the ministry in ensuring that happens. Now, of course, as with anywhere you go, I did training with Trinidad on the National Schools Dietary Services Limited, where we also monitor the program. And as with a lot of the places, there are challenges, but we are working assiduously. I believe in soon time we should be hearing some news, I believe, about the program. But we have been working to get the menus and so redone, because the aim is to really tie the feeding program with the dietary guidelines for Grenada. If some of us if we've been looking in international news, we may have seen that the US has launched their new food-based dietary guidelines, and it's been taking the internet by storm. And so really and truly what that does is that in every government institution, whether it's school, whether it's hospitals, whether it's geriatric facilities, those guidelines would set the foundation for how these menus will be built. And let me give you an idea. So for instance, within the different guidelines, there are different age ranges, like I mentioned before. So in nutrition, we call this nutrition for the life cycle. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and of course it's dependent on what your body requires. So we have those guidelines. For instance, we have adults, we usually have them from age 2 and above, and what the recommendations are within those particular age bracket, there'll be a certain amount of vitamins, not vitamins, sorry, food groups. So there'll be a certain amount of fruits for the day, a certain amount of vegetables for the day, right? A certain amount of peas and beans, all of those different food groups together. And we will take 1/3. So now we're moving away from the nutrients now, and we come a little bit higher to the food groups. What are the vegetables within the group? What are the fruits within the group? And we put them together in a menu, and that menu is then given to the schools, and then the meals would be prepared. Like I mentioned, of course, there are challenges, and I believe work is being done to try to solidify that challenge. One of the big things I see too is that across one of the bigger concerns we see, especially with the program, that even in many of these schools where significant effort is made, you find that a lot of the healthier options sometimes are not received by the children. So from time to time, the principals would encourage them to come out to the PTA meetings and to have the conversation with the parents, because we know that there is some work that must be done within the home. And so children are coming in the school environment, and the teachers may say they may not be getting the vegetable at home. So when we come to the school and we try to incorporate some of those things, it feels a little foreign, So it seems to be that it's a two-part relationship. We must work with the parents at home while we also bring them in with the school feeding program. So again, that is what the program aims to do.
Right, Doc. Before you come in, one last question though, Akeem, and I understand all of that. My other concern is the preparation of the meals for the children. Are there any checks and balances to ensure that the people who are tasked with that responsibility of preparing the meals are preparing it in such a way that it does not create a problem? Because and what I'm getting at here, there are people who like salt, and there are people who like sweet. Right? Is there any concern in that area so that the preparation, one, is not too salty, that would probably suit the palate of the person preparing rather than the children?
So I'm happy to report coming out recently. We just came out from our stakeholder training that was held, I think, in partnership with CAFA. We had the Ministry of Education and other stakeholders from Ministry of Health being invited, and it was with regards to building our school meal standards. Not just our school meal standards, but it serves as a framework for pretty much everything that is served within the school environment. And so what it was is that we, based on the particular menu and the particular requirement, of course, it went in accordance with the PAHO, right? The PAHO nutrient guide that place specific controls for things like sodium, like you just mentioned, ensuring that the sodium is within the required amount for the children. Things like saturated fats, right? Because we know saturated fats are associated with cardiovascular disease. Trans fats, especially, ensuring that is minimal or zero as much as possible. And the Food and Nutrition Council, as well as the school feeding officers, from time to time would visit the program to ensure. So we recently coming out of that. I believe we're looking to standardize the processes and introduce it within the new iterations of some of the school meals that will be coming out to fully strengthen. But this was happening recently, as in January this year. We're still in January. A few weeks ago, coming out of that very important training.
All right. So we will ensure that our cooks and people preparing are trained so that they do what is required.
And so the aim is, as long as we have standardized recipes and we have standardized menus, the aim is that all of these things should drive the process, so that the recipes are meant to be followed. And it's not where in St. George's we're following a different recipe, and in St. Patrick's we're following a different. Of course, there'll be variations in terms of spicing, but the aim is to really control from a standardization point of view.
Okay. I mean, I'm asking because, you see, sometimes at that level, it's one thing. And Akeem, I'm talking here at your level, maybe at the council and all of that. I mean, you are trained. You understand these things. Your colleagues are trained. But we have to consider, and this is serious business here, we have to consider that some of the people who are employed to do these jobs, are they trained? Do they understand what a gram of sugar is or a gram of that is? Do they understand, or they just go based on what they're accustomed to doing at home?
So the Food and Nutrition Council has actually been training cooks for a while. You must understand, however, that there's no program that can be introduced to the country full-fledged.
No, I understand that, but I just,
Hold on. Mm-hmm. So what they have done in the past, and there have been target schools, and there are schools that follow a great school nutrition plan. They have their menus, they have their people who are trained, right? But then the cooks are trained. by Food and Nutrition Council to provide meals that are nutritionally correct for the kids in the school. The objective, one of the old things, because people say, oh, the school food this and the school food that, because we had a school feeding program in the past, right? The school feeding program was to help people who are not as fortunate as you, right? Who can't get their children $25, $50 a day to come to school. But to also ensure that children get food, right? Now, the plan is that all schools, all children will have their meals in school. Hopefully that is what will happen. We see it in the US where kids, you go to the cafeteria, you have to eat what's there, right? So therefore, what is Food and Nutrition Council doing? Building recipes. They have their own lab where they develop different recipes, especially using local foods. And then there's a menu, and schools can choose a menu according to where they are, because children in St. George's may not like to eat as much fig as children in Guelph. I'm just saying. So the menu is developed according to the cultural preferences, the taste of the kids. But the standards for the nutrition guidelines they're standard throughout the entire country.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't mean to be stubborn, but Akim, can you say for certain that what Doc has said about the training the cooks is so? Is that the case?
Yeah. So we do train cooks. We train cooks pretty much every single year. We between the coming out of that summer semester into the beginning of that first term is when we usually have our training for cooks. One of the key challenges, like I would say with general. Now you mentioned the sodium. I think when it comes to the sodium and so there is a greater level of control. But I think overall, and this is a bit part of a larger conversation that I think we must have when it comes to food security and ensuring that we have enough local food to serve in our school feeding programs. You see, because sometimes I get the sodium, and it's important to manage the sodium and the sugar, but sometimes I wonder, because a lot of the foods that we're importing are sometimes they're not very nutrient dense. And so I like to say all the time, when it comes to the program, it's sometimes what are we providing? So it's about ensuring that we actually have enough nutrients and the food that we're serving are not void of the vitamins and minerals. So I think this is where we need to come in the conversation. But of course, this conversation would include our farmers. How can we get our communities and our farmers in our communities support our school feeding program? I think where that program specifically is concerned, the larger conversation must be a food security conversation. Because when you go to when you go to a supermarket and you go and you ask the questions, and we have the when you go to PTA meetings, the parents will say to you, well, these foods are expensive. These are the concerns. Sometimes the teachers would say when they have to now purchase these items, they can be quite costly. So as a country, I think what we see sometimes with our school feeding program is the same story we see at the clinics when we have the conversations. It's the same story we hear at the PTA meetings. There seems to be a consistent theme, a consistent theme going around. How can we have the adequate amounts of vegetables? 400 grams is what we're talking about. Fruits at the same rate at which we're having the starches. That is also part of the program as well. How can we get that into the program is what I'm saying. How can we get the vegetable and the fruit intake at the level where it's supposed to be?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right.
Going beyond getting the food in school, we still need buy-in. We need buy-in from Grenada at large, so that grandparents can support parents into encouraging their children and of course encourage the grandchildren. Policy must be established. First, Ministry of Agriculture must make sure that there is that there's enough production so that our children can eat properly. That's a big responsibility they have if we to teach our children how to eat properly. Unfortunately, commerce and trade in the last 40 years have taught us not to eat, because more than 40 years, 50 years, I'm going to primary school and children still carrying the carrier from home with a callaloo soup and the fig and saltfish sauce and stuff. Yeah, we still laugh at them, but the truth is they look healthier than me today. But we have to have buy-in. This has to be something that has to be taken by all of society, from the homes to the little neighbors, to your church, to your bigger communities, to your workplace, right? And into your parish and into the country as a whole. And the government has to lead with strong support, political will, that they must want to see that. Whoever the leadership is must want to see that our children benefit from good nutrition and a good start in life, because we are having challenges. Yeah. We talk about it every day. We talk about chronic disease and premature death till we're sick, till we almost like we're going dead from talking about it so much. The truth is, there must be a way that all of us agree. It's a responsibility for everybody. This is not just about the cooking and the principal fighting with parents, right? Fighting with children to eat, to buy the lunch in school, and all the children going outside and buying, whatever Miss Mavis sell on a tray, or in a sweetie shop, wherever they're going. No, there must be principle, there must be standards, there must be a certain amount of control as to what our children will eat in school, and so that our parents and the school is responsible for what is provided for our children. Right? It's safe, it's nutritionally sound, right? They get sufficient and they're happy, and they don't sleep all even because they eat too much sweet and too much carbs. And our children do not put on the kind of weight that they have been putting on because of the empty calories that they're consuming, right? And again, having challenges learning in school, having challenges with early high cholesterol, early hypertension, right? Early diabetes that is not childhood, that is not caused by a genetic challenge. No, we have to, as a country, take this bull by the horns, because we are dying, right? We can't allow the people who do marketing and who sell their stuff to make money destroy our country and our future and the future of our young people, because they want to sell things that taste, you can say nice but sweet, right? Or have too much salt, or have too much fat, right? And fat makes food sweet. The point I'm making is that we have to, as a country, come together and stand firm as to what nutrition our children deserve, and ensure that is provided. And that doesn't come from one part. It comes from Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social Development and how we run homes, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance, as to what we're going to import and not import, what we're going to make sure can come in tax-free. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I did say agriculture. I hope I did in the beginning. All right? NAWASA, ensuring that there's clean water, because I sent you a document stating that people are concerned about the quality of water. We get good, and we have good enough quality of water. Dry season, we might have some challenges, but I think generally I drink water from the tap most of the time. I can tell people that. But we must be guaranteed that if I go to the pipe to drink water, that the water in the pipe is healthy. That when I get to the sink, I'm a 6-year-old or 8-year-old and I want some water, I don't have to stand up in the sun and wait for it, right? That's when I get to the sink and I open it, I conquer it and walk out. That's when I go to the pipe and I drink. I can fill my water bottle there and enjoy and not have to worry about having diarrhea or whatever abdominal hurt or any long-term intestinal problem. Those are the things you want to know, that the water tastes good and clean and encourage me to want to have more, that the quality of water is just perfect for drinking.
All right, excellent. And so how do we tie that with physical activity to ensure that we maintain the prevention drive, the disease prevention drive that we want to make sure happens?
I'm going to start from the top this time. I think the government need to ensure that at the level of education in our schools, that physical education become compulsory, mandatory. Okay? It's not, there are children who can play, but that's a minuscule percentage of the children. Most of the children who go to regular school can run up and down and play. And you play according to how much you can play. If you could run around the court one time, that's fine. If you walk around the court one time, that's okay. But all children must enjoy 30 minutes of activity. They must be placed on the curriculum in that control space where children can enjoy half hour of playtime. Okay, we've been talking about physical literacy, and that's one of the things that's been introduced by the Sports Council. How people understand the importance of physical activity in their life. And once we can create that level of literacy within our children, and they understand that being active, physical movement is very important for their well-being and for their future, it becomes a habit. Just like how we start to get them sugar-sweetened beverages, and they get accustomed to it and like it, and they're addicted to the sugar. In the same way, they start playing. I like when I play. I feel good. And I've told you about a 15-minute mile. Grade 3 teacher in Scotland. Couldn't forget, the children come back from break time. They're logy, they're tired, they fall asleep between that and break time. They don't learn anything. Their cognitive skills are decreased because they're going to eat all the sweet snacks, sweet sugar-sweetened beverages, the fatty snacks, all the rest. Nothing nutritionally sound, okay? And these kids go and they have it. And they just decided that for the break time, she's going to do what you call the 1 minute mile. Okay, the 15-minute mile. It doesn't matter how far you can walk. You have to walk for 15 minutes to get out there. Some kids would run into the forest. You understand? Other kids run up and down in the park. Well, the children lost weight healthily. They became more active in class. Okay, there was less sicknesses among them, and the children were doing a whole lot better academically. The classroom became a more enlightened and light environment. The children were very happy. Learning for them was now a joy after having run up and play for 15 minutes.
So physical activity definitely is important. Yes.
So that's one. That's one level. I think within our work environments, we must also encourage our workers to become active. Right? A lot of us just work around the computer. If I want to talk to you, I call on the extension on the PBX. Hey, Godfrey, did you see that document? I have a document to show you. I take a picture and I send it for you. When I can take a 2 minutes walk and go up to your office, we discuss it and come back. Right? We stand up, we discuss it, we come back. All that is exercise. It adds up. Right? So the workplace must also be a place that encourages that kind of active lifestyle and facilitates, creates that an environment where workers can be healthy. And that's where trade unions come in, because most of our families work under some trade union, which is some trade union environment. And then your community, your church, is there a sports club? Do you have a community center? Do you have a community park? How are we encouraging each other to use these facilities, right? Okay, I'm Catholic, so what do you do when the ladies decide we're going to do the rosary? Legion of Mary. Do you sit down in the church? Can we walk around the church and do a rosary? It takes you half hour. Do you understand what I'm saying? How are we going to get creative, right? How are we going to get creative? How are we going to get the support from not just the big Orthodox churches, but evangelicals and other religious groups that stand out? Rastafari, Rastafari and I being all of that, Muslims, Hindus, you name it, Baha'i, all of those. How do all our faith-based groups, how are they going to cooperate with all of society to encourage appropriate lifestyle, especially one that encourages physical activity? And then it comes to the household. What are we doing, right? Am I telling my teacher, oh well, I don't want Mary to run up and down, or John to play in school, because when he plays, the uniform the shirt get too dirty. So what? Blue soap will take that out. Let John run and be happy. Be glad he have a dirty shirt today, because he'll be a healthy man tomorrow. Okay? Those are the things. But we have to, and I think that we as health educators, we as people who work in the sector that understand, that see all the research, that know where we are, we as people who know that, look, we've seen too much of this, we've seen too much premature death and all the rest, have to keep on talking about this, and we have to lead by example. I know I need to do that. We all have to get out there and lead Okay, and our prime minister going to talk, and the leader of the opposition will talk about it. It must be something that everybody must be able to talk about what's going on. And I'm sorry. Everybody must be able to. It must be something that becomes fluid. Just how you talk about for the carnival music night. So it must be something that all of us participate in as a country. We have to take our country forward, because if we don't do this, we are in trouble. Especially now that we have 60,000 plus cars.
Wow.
Soon can't move. We go soon have to walk to work anyway because the car them can't move.
I would want to agree, and if I could add, I have something to wonder. Because when we look at physical activity, I don't think of our parents. I always like to go back to those who've gone before us. Walking was part of the everyday life, and they didn't necessarily need a gym membership sometimes, but that's what they lived. They went to the garden, they walked mostly everywhere they went, and I think this is also a plug as when we talk about nation building. How can we also develop our country infrastructurally that encourages physical activity? I think at least I've seen and I've heard of some of my clients who we sometimes see within the district, the resounding cry would be the vehicles on the road, and sometimes it's unsafe for them. I can remember studying in Trinidad, and when you go to the pastures and the savannas, they would have those outdoor exercising machines that you can go
to. Community gyms.
In those community gyms that persons can engage in, and then you have clubs and so community groups being formed around those activities. You would pass down and you would see them hanging out in the afternoons. I'm reminded of we have a lot of community centers. We have basketball fields and we have football fields. How about us integrating those same spaces that we have already to include things like maybe outside lawn tennis, outside talking about volleyball, so that other persons who may not necessarily be inclined to do certain things can still come outside and engage. So how are we building our adequate sidewalks within our communities? As we're planning and as we're building, as we're developing, all of these things I believe should form part of the conversation. How can we make physical activity easy so that persons are not necessarily feeling that, oh, this thing is a chore? Because when it comes to behavior change, if it's not easy, if it's not convenient, if it's not satisfying, then persons will have a challenge gravitating towards it. And I think what we really were asking for is really a national behavior change, and that's the aim, because it's when we change behaviors, health outcomes get better. Bottom line. So I think there is work for us to continue the conversation, but to take the conversation at a higher level. I think there is room for policy, and so much in agreement with Dr. Nixon today. There is so much work for policy in being able to define the supportive environment. I always talk about those three things that must come together in the social cognitive model. We talk about the beliefs and the attitudes. We talk about persons, their ability, their self-efficacy. Can they do what is needed? And we hear supposed literacy, right? But the environment, I often believe that our environment has the ability to make or break our decisions. And as we have the conversation, we must create and shape that environment that's going to make it easy and enable that level of physical activity that we want in our schools as well. How then can we retrofit our schools to make those things happen? Or are we thinking of covering some of our fields if rain falling? That means some of us we can't go outside. All those are part of the conversation that we can have from a national level.
Right.
But I want to extend by one thing. Because a lot of us think that becoming physically active, we have to have Reebok shoes and Nike shoes and fancy gym wear and stuff. And that is nice. But, playing skip. Our children can't skip, run up and down, shandy dandy. We used to make bean bag and we run and catch, and then we used to play up and down the deck, keep moving, and we play half of them, we laugh and we fall and we breathe and we improve our mood, but we also exercise. Okay? I saw a guy the other day at Foodland in town playing moral. It was so funny, but it's something we did. You move, you exercise yourself, as simple as it is. So those traditional games I used to play, the big clap hand games, who stole the cookie from the cookie jar, right? And your brain working, you working, people dancing, everybody singing, and there's interaction, community interaction, emotional interaction among the people who are playing. We don't need to have to spend a lot of money when we go to our communities to play. Right? When we go to our communities to exercise, it must be a place where we all want to meet and have fun and play six-a-side football and cricket, windball, cricket, and those things that are not going to cost us a lot of money. Those are the things that we have to remind our community, that we can do these things without it costing us too much. You want to go to the gym, fine. If you have the money, that's okay. You want to go play golf, that's okay. If you can buy the gear and all the rest, go right ahead. But let's look for the things that are entry level. Let's look for walking and I'm going for a hike and all of those things as a way of keeping ourselves active and happy.
Right. Excellent. So I want us, and I'm not sure if we might be able to get past this one, but community engagement, which I think is very, very important. And that speaks to involving the parents and the community by large in health promotion activities. And that in itself can enhance effectiveness of primary prevention strategies. Doc, let's speak to that.
So getting our communities involved. So community goes both ways, right? Are you going to go from the top or from the bottom, right? Are you going how everybody leave town and they go home to work and they become a community, right? Or how everybody come from their homes and form a community, right? I still think that as a country, we have a lot of health education to do, okay? But not far-fetched and highfalutin language. I think we have to engage our community groups. The church is a fabulous place to engage. The church is probably our most prolific, right, community-based organization. Yet we don't include them. The Seventh-day Adventists do have a health program. They do a lot of screening and stuff. They have a serious nutrition program among Seventh-day Adventists and how they eat. Although some of the people who are things they don't eat the vegetarians. But that's another story. But at least there's an effort for them as a large community, and they are a large community. Okay. But I think the rest of us need to get engaged, and I think the Ministry of Health, who is going to lead, and it should be the Ministry of Health because they have the responsibility for health education, right? Must always engage all the community stakeholders. The Chamber of Commerce, where are you? Are you just trying to get biscuits sold, or are you trying to ensure that you have a healthy population that can work and buy the commerce, engage in effective commerce? So I think the ministry has to take the lead. But I'm saying as well, community groups, as we go converting each other, I think we all have to get out there and work. I think we have to work, especially we have community schools. I think, I know that the ministry is looking to, the Ministry of Sports is looking to engage through the sports councils in different parishes, get schools back, get the communities moving. So it's going to have to be we're going to have to talk. We're going to have to sit down and come together, all the stakeholders, and figure out what can I do to ensure that my community is healthy.
Right.
We talked about the Ministry of Agriculture and food safety, because food security is very important, right? We talked about water, and there are different players. And everybody has to see what is their social responsibility in ensuring that our community, our country is healthy.
Right.
Okay.
So I when we started, I mentioned about the health education programs, and then Akeem also mentioned that from time to time they would visit the schools. They're usually invited to the PTAs and stuff like that. What about the possibility? So, for example, at the PTAs, you set aside 15 minutes where you can share some health information with the parents so that they now can help strengthen the whole thing through their children. So the children hear it from the parents and they hear it from the teachers. Can we create little programs like that? You mentioned the church. Maybe at some point during the service, or maybe just before the service is concluded, something healthy is, some sort of health information is, passed on. So different areas, get the community involved in different ways, arm them with information.
You're going to have a central point, from which all of this is structured and passed on. We can't do all of it at the same time.
No, I agree. So you mentioned the ministry. The ministry can come up, maybe work together with Food and Nutrition, for example, if we're talking nutrition, so they can pass the information on to the schools. The schools then take it and they go with it. So it's structured. So that when the information gets out there, people are speaking in one voice, and so it makes good sense.
I would want to offer a similar but an additional perspective, and for this I'll have to put on my youth parliament hat, because we have had to do a lot of consulting and engaging our communities, especially within my constituency, especially during the campaign process. And one of the things you mentioned, community engagement, and one of the things that we found that has been a consistent theme across the constituencies, my colleagues and I, is that persons have been saying nothing is happening. I grew up in a community in the Northeast where we were known for having a lot of sporting activity. We were known for being a very vibrant farming and agricultural community. But I always like to talk about health and nutrition within the current constructs. I think the times we're living in are changing, and they may call for a bit of a different approach, I'll say. And so we realize that we are also in a time where we have social media and a lot of persons are glued to their phones. What I also realize is that I also grew up in a time when there were leaders within our communities who take initiative to organize different things. That's why I could always talk about, I'm from New Hampshire, and I remember the persons like Teacher Louise, and you would always know Teacher Louise would have this Sunday school and afternoons where the communities would come out, and it was a good place. She would provide little refreshments, and so it was a very good place for community engagements. I would like to want to put a plug, because it might mean that we talk about the Ministry of Health, but we may also want to consider decentralizing some of these things to, let's say, local governments or community councils, whatever you want to call them, to be able to organize things within the communities on a day-to-day basis. We have community centers, we have those sporting things. How can we allow our communities to take the lead and to have persons come to the table and take the lead in being productive? At the end of the day, we must start at the community, and communities trust people or listen to people who they know and trust. I think it's a good opportunity for us to use as an opportunity, not just for that, but to really bring back the community engagement. People are not coming outside, and so we have to create the spaces for them to come outside, I would say. That's my alternative.
I have a comment, Doc, from and let me take that comment. You might want to comment on it as well. So someone is saying, good night all. Is it possible that the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education can team up with the Food and Nutrition Council and also the farmers to provide fresh products? A doctor to come in once a week in all schools and also preschools to ensure that the guidelines goes on properly or right, and not just leave it up to the cooks. About a week ago, a little girl told her mother she's allergic to rice. Then the child turned and said to her mom, every day in school is rice. That's from one of the...
Not all the schools have the new school nutrition policy in. It's something that's being phased in, okay? So at least you can have good supervision and evaluation. And when as one gets better, you move to another, and you understand, as they become more and more independent. I'm really very sorry that my little friend has to eat so much rice. Girl, I could understand how you're vexed. Trust me, because sometimes you could do a little fig or a piece of yam and a pea soup or something. I understand. Right? So she's not allergic to rice. I love that word. But I I think the person understands what we need. I think who is making the suggestions does understand what we need. We need different tiers, but I was going to tell Akeem, there is organization and structure, right? Planning, policy, whatever you want, and then there's planning to implement, and there's implementation. Okay, so you at every level you have to have people who understand what you need. So it can't be just ad hoc, because remember you want to evaluate for outcomes, right? You want to evaluate the outcomes. So you have to make sure that you have the things that can give you the best outcomes for the community. Whatever their best outcomes are available to them, right? So like I say, River Road don't have a lot of place. People in River Road don't have where to run up and down in their yard. But people where I live have yard. So they can probably play skip, or they can, you understand? Play rounders or stuff in the yard. So it depends on what it is. You have to gauge it according to the community. But you have to have people who know what this is about, who can engage and who can support and direct communities, how they must go in order to ensure that we have viable, one, and productive activity. Right. And enjoyable, of course.
Yeah. So, Doc, we're out of time actually, but I really want us to speak on the mental health aspect of things, especially in children, because that is a critical part of children's health. You know, mental health, very, very important. And I think we all understand, some children do experience, they do have some traumatic experiences. And I think it's very, very important. I don't want us to start it now because I know it's going to take some discussion.
I think, we can. I want to talk about it. I think it gives that little lean on total health.
But we need to keep it short because we're basically out of time.
For a minute. The bottom line is that our children's mental health is important. Our children living in different times, they're influenced by different external factors. We've seen a whole lot. We've seen abuse, especially, right? We've seen broken families. We've seen a lot of things that can impact on our children's mental well-being. The challenge is that unless we recognize it, we're not going to do anything about it. So we have to recognize, and we have to create healthy spaces for children to be well. We have to be educated, or teachers or parents. Everybody must be knowledgeable as to when our children have challenges. But we also have to make sure that there's no space, okay, for our children to develop mental health problems. We have to make sure. Physical exercise is one of the ways, right? You have bored children at home, you take away their tablet and they vex, and they want to burn down the house. No, I'm not giving anybody any ideas as to what to do in their mother house when they take away the tablet. The bottom line is that mental health is very important. Let me tell you how lucky we are as a Grenadian population. We actually have a pediatric psychiatrist. You know how hard it is to find one of those things? And we have somebody who's worked here, who's very culturally developed. They've lived. She's Cuban, but she's lived here. She understands. She speaks proper English. We do have a mental health worker. There are mental health workers who visit the schools. The teachers know that they can call a mental health worker if a child is showing some behavioral problem, right? And have the child evaluated. The bottom line is we have to get there before that. We have to make sure that we create safe environments for our children, right? That our children are not exposed to having drugs, doing alcohol, even little children I'm talking about, right? Now, with the decriminalization of ganja, people need to understand that you can only smoke ganja in your yard. You know that, right? You can't go and smoke weed on the road, on the block, and them things done, right? It must be something that you do privately because it's decriminalized, meaning that you can smoke what you want at home, but you're not coming on the street because then you're a criminal.
But then how does that, when you do it at home, how does that impact the children at home?
Well, so that's the point. You have to decide how you're going to make sure. First of all, you can't smoke in your presence of your children, anything. You can't smoke nothing. No, because it's bad. Secondary smoke and tertiary smoke is bad for our children. And tertiary smoke is that smoke that lingers on the walls and on the carpets and on the seats and stuff, right? So we have to make sure that we can protect our children in our homes. and that's a responsibility. We have to understand that there are families who have mental illness, and the children will probably be genetically prone to mental illness, and we have to be able to prevent full-blown mental illness. And remember the other things like learning disabilities, behavioral problems and stuff that come under mental health.
All right. So, I mean, of course, it's an area that does require a lot more discussion. But as I said, we're out of time. So, Akim, a minute just to make your closing comments.
I'll close by saying we really must understand that with our young people, we are trying to correct for a mistake that we are seeing today. We are seeing the rise in the chronic disease, and we are really trying to make and have a reset. We are really trying to ensure that we are not walking into the high levels of diabetes, high blood pressure, and having an unproductive society simply because we have created and nurtured an environment that makes it difficult to do so. I want to wish us well. I want to wish us a productive 2026. All the best of health to every household and every family viewing tonight.
Thank you very much, Akim. Doc, 1 minute, quickly.
Spoken like a true politician. Love it, Akim. Look, we're in trouble, okay? We're already in trouble. And while I agree with Akim, there's the other side. There is the side that we already have problems that we have to deal with, and there's the other side that we need to keep our children, who are still children, we have to make sure that they're healthy. So whatever is required, whether they're vaccines, their nutrition, their physical and mental safety, their exercise, their education, whatever is required, whatever, it doesn't matter who's going to ensure that these amenities are available to our children, they must do so, okay? Whatever is required, so that we don't have another generation of people who have mental illness that is uncured, or untreated, or unidentified. We don't have a generation who at 20s already developing type 2 diabetes and all the rest of it, because they're going to be dead by 40. We have to think about the productivity. That is why we keep our populations healthy. And I'm making a petition to grandparents and parents, come on board. Let's all talk about how we get our children to be healthy. Right? Sometimes you may not like it, but it's always going to be in the best interest of our children. Remember, there's still flu going around, please, and there's a lot of mosquitoes, so protect yourself, right? You will get dengue, and like I said, there's a lot of viral illnesses. I would encourage people who are particularly prone, hypertensive, diabetics, to wear their masks.
Yes, indeed.
And pregnant women, and keep your children at home if they don't have to go out, and your old people.
Thank you very much indeed. I just want to close by sharing this little bit. Primary prevention in school-age children is vital for reducing the incidence of diseases and promoting a healthy lifestyle. By addressing health issues early and providing children with the tools they need to make informed choices, we can significantly improve their long-term health outcomes and quality of life. Schools serve as a critical platform for delivering these interventions, making them an integral part of public health strategies aimed at this age group. We thank you very much for staying with us. Doc, thank you very much. Akim, thank you so very much. It wasn't it a pleasure. We look forward to doing this again next Tuesday, same time. To have a good night. All the best.